Hello. Oops, I'm not in frame. Let's see. Scoot my computer over here. Am I in frame? I'm in frame. Hi, everyone. Welcome to Monday evening. If you're watching live, Monday evening neurofeedback and chill. Tonight, we're going to talk about hemoencephalography. Say that 3 times fast. pirHEG, passive infrared hemoencephalography. I'll talk a little bit about all forms of HEG as I see them. But I thought I'd do a little bit of a shorter one tonight, and also get into that tech a little bit. People have been asking me, my camera's still at an angle here. There we go. That's better. A little bit smaller, Andrew. Folks have been asking me about HEG a lot recently, and I've been a little resistant to talk about it in a live stream or a YouTube video, mostly because it's a little hard to piece together the access to all the different bits of technology. Also, I apologize if you hear some background noise, but it's really hot here in LA, and I have the door open behind me for some breeze, so you might catch a little bit of dogs barking or sirens. Hey, Radar Ashwood, welcome. I see also Ryan got some good questions lined up. Thanks, guys. Nice to see you all tonight. I see a few other folks rolling in. Cool. So we're going to talk about HEG, hemoencephalography, which is a form of vascular dynamics biofeedback. And I'll unpack a little bit about what I mean by that. But there's 3 or 4 different things that sort of fit into that category. And I wanted to review those tools in general. Now, I have both versions. I actually have at least 3 different versions of HEG. But I only have one headset here, my preferred one. So HEG was sort of co-developed in 2 different forms. First, I believe, by Herschel Tumim, who developed a version called nirHEG, near infrared. And you may have seen these headsets, they're little thin blue strips. And on the inside, they have a red light emitter and a red light receiver. And Dr. Tumim's stroke of genius was realizing that if you measure the amount of red light absorbed by oxygenated versus non-oxygenated blood, you get a different signal, different red light level. And so the NIR device essentially bounces near infrared light at a location and then has the emitter to receive reflected light back out. And the change in that red level is a proxy for oxygenation, essentially. And so theoretically, NIR works on more focal areas, and it's also not a completely passive device because it's sort of doing this interference signal measurement thing with an NIR emitter. And the technology behind nirHEG is also very, very similar to things like the Mendy device, which is a consumer or prosumer device that's out there. So if you want to use that flavor of HEG, those are available. You can buy the Mendy device for a few $100. I don't have a link. I'm not an affiliate for them, but it's easy to find. And then Dr. Tumim's device, which I believe the company was Los Angeles Neurofeedback, they were affected by the fires here quite a bit. So if you are interested in buying those devices, I don't know if they're making them, but I bet they would love people reaching out and trying to buy the flat device, the near infrared. Now, I use more passive infrared. I'll show you that device, which I have right here somewhere. That looks like this. There's a few different versions of this, but it's just a headset with some infrared lenses. So these are little infrared cameras, but they're unfocused lenses, basically. And so most of the devices that are out there for passive infrared will have a little bit of a gap, and they'll be held away from the skin. And the field is essentially unfocused, so you're getting this kind of summed global signal. You're not getting a sensitive signal, so to speak, or a spatially focal signal. So one difference between NIR and pirHEG practically is that you only do HEG in the middle. You don't do it off to one side or off to the other. But NIR, you might actually move around to train different locations. So they are a little different in that way. The main reason I like PIR so much better is because I find that it works a lot better. It tends to have more impact for the things that I use it for, which are things like migraines and brain fog from concussions. And I find that HEG, pirHEG, Also seems to goose social function. Some people can help concentration very strongly. Some people can get irritated by it. And I think that's our first question for the day. So Ryan has a question. Hey, Ryan, when I tried pirHEG, it gave me extreme headaches and mental fatigue for 2 to 3 days after. Any idea on the mechanism behind this and if it's worthwhile to push through or not? So that's really unusual for HEG. I, of course, believe your experience. pirHEG works very well to eliminate a migrainous tendency. So I believe what you experienced is fatigue. And my hunch is that there's things going on, metabolic things going on that make it or made it too much for you. And we do find that sometimes. People with strong active inflammation from COVID or chemotherapy or mold or Lyme or active POTS or dysautonomia stuff, chronic fatigue. These things all do respond pretty well to HEG as one of the tools, but they often, if they're really active, like a Lyme flare that's super active, you wouldn't be able to do HEG without further exhausting someone. So if it knocked you over, it was probably too much too soon, too much for the metabolic loading. Does that mean it's good to push through? Probably not. What I would say is once you can tolerate either a sauna or tolerate some exercise without getting some exercise-induced fatigue, then you can sort of handle the metabolic toning that the HEG will bring up as well. The fatigue you experienced, if I had to guess, Ryan, might have been a bit of a healing phenomena too. You might have been sort of moving resources in a way that they had not been moved in a long time. So my hunch is it was an overtraining, an acute overtraining effect. I've seen very rarely people trigger migraines with HEG as well. Much more commonly, you can use HEG to sort of massage away migraines, either the tendency in general, or actually to stop them cold if they're starting, or to take a long running one and kind of break it up. I have a long running one right now that's kind of low key, and it's been there for a few days, and I kind of wanted to break it up a little bit. And doing some blood flow training is about the most reliable way for me for that. So Ryan, I wouldn't bother pushing through it, but once you can tolerate a little exercise and not get some exercise-induced fatigue, then I expect you'll be able to handle the HEG. And it's worth doing at that point, yeah. Let's see. Ryan's also asking, can healthy people derive benefits from pirHEG, or can it be risky for them? No, I think healthy people can derive benefits. I don't see any risk. I think the risk would be if you had really friable vasculature, people that are very, very old, a lot of strokes, a lot of bleeding. I'd be a little concerned. I'm often very careful doing HEG with elders that have had strokes or aneurysms. I'll often call the neurologist and say, hey, would you clear this, please? It's passive. We're not sending anything in, but we are doing biofeedback on blood flow. And so I'll have neurologists check, and they've all basically said, oh, yeah, no, it's fine. So I don't make those medical decisions, but if there's a medical thing going on, I would always consult with a doctor. But no, in general, when I use HEG with healthy folks, let's say peak performers, I find that it can crank up intensity of executive function and reaction time. So I've seen baseball players get much better at hitting doing HEG. And I've seen fencers get faster. And fencing, I don't know if you're any fencers watching. Fencing is not a sport where you have to do hand-eye coordination stuff to some extent. You would think it is. You're not actually watching the blade of your opponent. You're really watching their body, and you're feeling their blade with your blade. I was a fencer in college. You have to remain incredibly calm under a lot of physical exertion, really intense physical exertion, for up to 5 minutes. Really, really intense. And what tends to happen is people fatigue out and slow down. And fencers getting faster, able to manage that stress level to stay quick and light and moving and controlling space between them and their opponent. So I've also seen other phenomena get jacked up, get improved by HEG. What I would say is you don't want to do HEG. It's contraindicated when you're trying to do alpha training or theta training or other things that are more relaxing. The HEG is going to be more activating. It's going to wake up the tissue and be more supportive of beta waves. So Let me set up my HEG system. Let me see some more questions here. Joe Barr. Hey, Joe Barr. How often would I train with HEG and for how long is a typical session? That's a great question and good segue into setting up an HEG session. So another reason that I don't love HEG, again, it's the accessibility of the software and the hardware. I brought 3 examples for the class tonight. We've got a good amp called the QWiz that's hard to find because the company is not servicing, not supplying them anymore. And then this has a couple of slots on it. Let me see. So behind this little yellow tab is a, here, I'll pull it out. That's for the NIR socket. And this little thing next to it, which is a thermocouple bladed socket, is the actual PIR HEG. And then this is a Neurobit amp, Neurobit Optima. And this has an auxiliary port on the side right there. And that has an adapter cable for the PIR. So it goes from a bladed thermocouple into a round cable for that. And then I also happen to have another pocket Neurobics amp called the UWiz. This one's plugged in. As you can see, it's lit up. And you're probably not going to be able to see it on the camera. But right there on the butt of the amp, there's a little tiny set of sockets that will take the blade of the thermocouple. And that looks like this. This is the socket side of the amp, and it's an asymmetric socket. And you simply plug it in. Only goes in one way, so don't force it. And this actually is a pretty smart amp. I'm sad that the company's not up and running anymore, because I plug it in and the amp instantly starts flashing. It's actually doing a baselining thing inside the amp. It's checking some things. I'm gonna have to baseline again because the device is not actually on my head right now. But let me bring up another piece of software. And I do HEG using software called BioExplorer, which I'll bring up for you right now. There it is. And I am building some other software to do HEG. But I have other software and hardware projects ahead of me, or other projects ahead of me. So you can see here, there's a black window, and then behind it we have this other little gray window, and that gray window is it's the driver for the amplifier. It's the control panel for the amplifier. So let me first put the HEG on my head, and for PIR, it's really easy to place. One of the reasons I love PIR is that little kids can use it who are wiggling and rocking and moving, and it's insensitive to movement. So you want to put it right in the middle, about a finger's width above the eyebrow. There it is. It's done. That's it. Super easy to put in place. And now looking at my driver window, oops, where'd it go? It's in the background. So you see it says here EEG link refs. This is not what it wants to show. It also says 4-channel over here, which is not what we want. We want a 2-channel or an HEG. Let's put an HEG. And then let's turn off the link refs. And now you can see it's calibrating again. That's going to auto-calibrate. And that will actually look like in the upper right here, the screen's still blank, but it says CH1 and CH2. And right now the CH1 is turned blue. And that means that it's a calibrated HEG signal. So what I've done is open up a piece of software called BioExplorer. And it works pretty well. It's a little bit basic. It's a little clunky, a little old. If you can find a copy of it, like eBay or something, it works pretty well for home training. It's a little bit weaker than clinical systems, but it does work. And it works for this kind of stuff just fine. So I'm going to open up what's called a design window. These are how you train with BioExplorer. You can build these yourselves, but let's see, HEG. So what a design does, it has usually more than one page, usually a page showing some output like we're seeing here, but you also see a signal diagram, which is how you take information off the amp and process it and then do math on it and spit it out into rewards. So these can be a little tricky to create, and if you're training with somebody using BioExplorer, this is where the skill is building out protocols. But this is an HEG system, pretty basic, and I'm simply going to tie together the audio of the blood flow and the and the trace on the screen. So let me go up and hit the plus sign. Okay, so you can see now we have a couple things happening. Oh, let me turn off the title. Okay, so you can see here that I'm doing a couple things. I have the ball going up and down, and also the pink trace in the bottom right, and there's some audio happening you might be able to hear. Let me turn up a little bit more. So there we go. So what's happening is whenever my brain makes a larger surge of heat, which is an increase in vascular energy, you're seeing the pink line go up, and the pitches of the audio go up, and the ball go up. And it's not really a voluntary phenomena, but it has some response to voluntary stuff. So if I focus, I should be able to make it surge. Goes down, interesting. And then up, come on, climb. Okay, so that's a voluntary activation of energy right there. You see it's a little bit different, and I'll make it happen again. Interestingly, when I first started to do it, it went down. So there was this shutdown as my brain tried to marshal energy, and it couldn't. And then a couple seconds later, it kicked in. Let's try one more time. Little one. And then happy thoughts. Happy thoughts. Happy thoughts or focus will both bring up the frontal blood flow. Actually, in general, the whole frontal lobe gets hotter. So what I'm doing is creating voluntary pumping of my vasculature, but also getting an involuntary sort of information flow happening. So I've tied the amount of energy to the pitch just to give my brain a little bit of information. So Joe Barr, what I would do in terms of how often, it depends. It depends on why we're using it and what your experience is with it. I have people for whom they can only do it for a few minutes and they feel fatigued. I have people like Ryan who report doing it and feeling wiped out for a day or two, which is unusual. Usually I have people do it for 5 minutes or 6 minutes the first time. A kid, maybe 4 minutes, an adult, maybe 5 or 6. And then I'll add 1 minute to the session time length each time. And I only go up to about 10 minutes total for a full quote unquote session. And then what I'll do is have someone do the HEG before a beta training. So if they're doing EEG training and it involves beta waves being rewarded or theta being inhibited, then I'll have them do HEG before it perhaps. And if they're doing an alpha training, I won't use HEG or alpha theta. It's kind of contraindicated. They don't mix really well. And in terms of how often, before most beta containing EEG neurofeedback would be fine. I would also say that someone can use it on its own, and they can use it to, again, both reduce the intensity of migraines or to shut one off that's threatening to show up. It's pretty impressive that way for some people, me included. So like I'm already feeling really good. Actually, just, the fog that I walked in with, so to speak, is not there anymore. And, what I would say is you can use this maybe up to 5 days a week, up to 10 minutes is pretty good. I know people that train HEG for longer. I also think that Dr. Carmen, who invented this style of HEG, does it differently than I do and would generally do much longer sessions and would do thresholding. I'm doing a sort of semi-voluntary, almost a peripheral biofeedback way of using it. So it's a little different. I think it might actually apply to the next question. Jay Han, hey sir, how are you doing? Or ma'am, I don't know which. Could you compare, contrast my anticipated software with Jeff's training software? Yeah, so my software will look a lot like this design that I've built. It's going to have an animation on one side and a signal trace and give you a mix of continuous like this and thresholded, where you can set a power bar and it will only sound if it's above that bar. But this is the metaphor I'm going for. So this software, this BioExplorer software design is something that I built on top of BioExplorer. So I'm going to take the same visual metaphor and it will just include the thresholding because some people use thresholding. But it's already built, looks pretty good, works fine. It's running right now on, I built it on Electron, which is what Slack is built on. And it seems to work pretty well. It doesn't need any real performance. I'll probably want to rebuild it in something like Rust because I will want EEG level performance in it. And I don't think that Electron is going to give me that directly. It would have been out already, but I spent like a month or two really hammering my head against code, getting a driver built out for these whiz amps because the spec wasn't published, in terms of what the API is for the amplifiers. And so I had to kind of like use a bunch of tricks to figure out how to tell the amp how to go in certain modes and baseline. And I got it all working and then realized that we couldn't buy any more whiz amps. So I got the driver spec from Heinrich at Neurobit Optima very easily. He was really happy to provide that. He's really easy to work with. And I have that waiting. So when I go back to the project, I have to then integrate that API into a new driver, and then I'll have it out. So I would guess it's probably not before the end of the year. I'm trying to get some other software out first to track and manage neurofeedback in maybe 3 months. And then a few months later, the HEG software. And then a few months after that, it'll be in EEG format, I would guess. Yes, Rust might be more speedy for EEG. Hey Kirk, nice to see you. Do Golang? Maybe. I mean, if I'm going to do Golang, why don't I use Erlang or use what's that audio MIDI programming software stack, which is kind of like a time series software. It's kind of like Erlang or Golang. What's it called? It's got like an F in the name of it, and you tie together like signal diagrams and create signal processing chains. I could use that, but I'm just basically I don't want to become a software developer full time. So doing enough development to get it working, and then backing out is my real goal. Ryan's asking, how much does it cost total for that PIR HEG unit and BioExplorer software, etc.? Great question. So this headset, I think they're like $700 to $800 right now. Jeff Carmen will sell them directly. I forget what they cost, but they're like $750, $800 in that neighborhood. Might be a little bit more actually, but something like that. They're under $1,000. And then BioExplorer, again, Larry Janow is sometimes hard to get replies from. So if you're a vendor or a company, you probably just have to buy them retail. There's a guy on eBay who sells them all the time. I think they're $350 for a copy of BioExplorer. So now we're up to like maybe $1,200 or so all in. And then we need an amplifier. And this amplifier is probably the best one to get. And it's a 2-channel. It's got EEG on it. And it's a 2-channel with the auxiliary. So it's the Neurobit Optima Plus, the 2 Plus with the auxiliary port. And it's the USB version, which I prefer. And I forget how much these things are. These are like maybe $800. So you're talking about, once you throw in a microcomputer, you're talking about $2,000 for an HEG system. But I got to tell you, for something that can reliably train away migraines, I think it's worth it. I also use the HEG for autism, for goosing social function. I don't know why it does that, but it seems to create sometimes really strong changes in eye contact, sense of humor, sometimes language, timing. So there's some really social things that can be promoted with HEG, and I often bring it in when there's a developmental complaint. So, Kirk's saying, Golang's crazy fast, been a Ruby guy for 19 years, but I'm blown away by Golang. Yeah, I might not need the speed either. I can probably stay on Electron and then build signal processing libraries, either in Rust or even on the GPU, right? And then I can hand those off from Electron or from Tauri. I think Joe Barr made a comment here. Yeah, Joe Barr says, I've heard good things about Tauri framework, uses Rust for I/O, but UI can be any JavaScript. Yeah, exactly. So I'm thinking that if I move off of Electron from the prototype into Tauri, that'll give me the ability to compile either C libraries or Rust libraries locally on the local machine and use CPU or GPU games. So I should be able to create a full neurofeedback software stack using Tauri and TypeScript basically, and have really, really good performance, and Rust as the back end. But it might make some sense to use Golang. It depends. I just don't think that I need the performance that a true sort of time series system will give me. So I'm not sure. Radar is asking, hey Radar Ashwood. Radar is asking, any luck using neurofeedback on people to lose weight? Do fat people tend to lose weight? Yes, actually they do. I think we finished here with our timing, right? We did. Yeah, so it's also nice there's no paste to remove. Yes, neurofeedback can be a tool in weight loss. Now, why somebody is carrying extra weight is important part of the equation, right? In terms of the weight loss. Weight loss stuff can be chronic stress and sleep issues. Often it's things like anxiety or impulsivity could be a factor. Depression can be a factor. OCD every so often is a factor. Or hyperfocus, sensory focus, like autism, that can be a factor for food sometimes. All of these things will have a slightly different approach. And in general, you don't really have to go after them specifically. You're working on the whole person, and they get healthier, the anxiety, the ADHD, the sleep, and people start using their brain differently. So if impulsive eating late at night is a thing, and you start feeling more comfortable falling asleep, more comfortable with your anxiety at the end of your day, maybe you won't eat so much at the end of the day. Also, maybe your neuroscientist tells you that 2 hours eating before bed will screw with your sleep quality. And so just leaning into some habits might be part of it. I'm not sure that if neurofeedback is doing all of the benefit we see. But no, you can do work on related phenomena that are driving difficulties with diet or food choice or other things. You can actually do protocols directly on snackiness. There's something I call the dieter protocol or the snackers protocol, which is FP1 minus M2, the bone behind the right ear. And you inhibit theta and reward a narrow beta. You reward 12 to 14. And I don't know why it works, but it seems to reduce the taste for sugar and the desire to snack at the end of the day. So interesting protocol. Kirk is asking if I'm building for mobile or for desktops too. Yeah, just desktops for the time being. I mean, you can get away with a pretty low-key desktop these days. I'm building other software first, Kirk. I don't know if you know, but I'm building I currently use a bunch of different pieces of software to help clients train, like tracking software and reporting software and reminders and surveys and chats. And I have things the clients can't see, like Kanban boards and other stuff that I'm just kind of, up to my elbows in. And I've rebuilt all of that into a platform that we're calling Noggin. And at some point in the next few months, I'm going to roll it out. So everyone will have this sort of fitness tracker for the brain dashboard. So when you do your ice bath or your sauna or your neurofeedback or your meditation, you can be tracking that against the goals you have for brain health, like attention, stress, sleep. And then day to day, watch how the things you are doing are impacting the things that you are wanting to change. This is sort of what I do for clients now, collating a lot of back-end data and thinking about what neurofeedback they might need. And I built this tool to track the data model of neurofeedback because it's kind of complicated. But honestly, I've expanded it into a pretty broad tracking tool for healthy habits. And you'll be able to share with providers so they can see only what data you want them to see and sort of create long-term tracking. So it'll be a relatively useful piece of software while doing neurofeedback, but also hopefully in general. And that's going to start off as desktop. Then I'll do a mobile version of that. Then I will do the neurofeedback desktop software. And I'll probably plan to do that cross-platform desktop, but first on Mac, actually. I'll probably release it first on a Macintosh because there's no software for neurofeedback for Mac. And as a business owner who has lots and lots of machines running neurofeedback software, I mean, I must have 200 machines in the whole company, literally all running different versions of neurofeedback software. Keeping Windows machines running properly is a giant pain in the butt. And if I had a bunch of very low-cost Macs running neurofeedback software, it would just work. And it wouldn't crap the bed whenever a driver or an update comes in. So I think releasing something on a Mac is useful as lower cost, lighter weight neurofeedback software. And that will be first HEG. And then once there's like any adoption and any, real use, then I'll build in more games and do EEG processing as well, like I was saying with Rust or maybe Erlang. But that's probably a 2026 project at this point. So this year you guys can look forward to, in the next, where I've basically finished. I have to finish up a directory. I built a giant directory of about, 3,000 people that are neurofeedback providers, several hundred vendors, courses, and I'm putting them all into a searchable database. You can go and find a directory, find a specialist, contact them, link out to their website, and really, I get asked all the time where I find a neurofeedback provider, and I do neurofeedback remotely, globally. And so, come work with me. But, people are often looking for someone local. And so I built this database and this directory website, and I'll be releasing that shortly, probably this week or next week. I may have said that last week, but it's coming soon. And then once that's off my plate, my developer, my junior developer and I will get back to working on the fitness tracker for the brain, and we will get that out into Peak Brain client hands before the end of the calendar year. So if you're a Peak Brain client or a Peak Brain partner, you'll be able to use this new Noggin software, we're calling it, by the end of the year. And if you've been a Peak Brain client, you'll also be able to use it. So this is going to be like basic, monthly kind of software as a service stuff. But I'm going to give everyone who's ever been a Peak Brain client, ever had a brain map or done a neurofeedback program with us, a year of access to this fitness tracker, so to speak. So, several thousand people using it initially. But if you're a current client of ours, we're probably going to be transitioning at the end of the year to this new software. And we're moving all of your data over. So that's actually one of the things that's taking a long time, is taking all of the old format data and transforming it and inserting it into a new system. So I would say I'm probably about 70% done with the new system, but that last 30% is going to take me another few months to finish off. I do need beta testers, and I will definitely invite you in, Kirk. Either if you're working with us, we'll invite you in just naturally, and if you aren't, I'll let folks on this live stream know as well, so you guys can keep an eye open for beta testing. Radar's asking, Doc, I think I might need to get another QEEG soon. Well, you're welcome to, with us or anyone. For those who don't know, Peak Brain has lower cost QEEGs available globally, especially if you're coming to one of our offices. It's pretty low cost in West Palm Beach, in Nova Scotia, in New York City, in St. Louis, Los Angeles, Orange County, California, London, or Stockholm, in all those places, and soon Portugal. The brain maps can be had for, in the US, I think it's $250 for a year of access. So if you want a brain map, come on in, Radar. Best deal in the world for unlimited brain maps, as many as you need. And I'll do at least 2 consults with you for that $250. And if you're in Europe or one of the partner locations, you can have the same price, but it's a one-off. In the UK and in Europe, we're looking for office spaces. And once we have a more fixed office and doing less of the pop-up thing, we will offer them more unlimited. But right now you can do the same price, but it's a one-off in London or Stockholm or Nova Scotia. So those will be available. Radar, if you're in the US and you want to get one remotely, you're asking how much it's to do a remote QEEG. If it's an a la carte remote QEEG, it is a little bit expensive because that's sort of a chunk of our program is the remote QEEGs, and it's a bottleneck for us. I think we charge $1,250, but I'll give you a discount, just like I discount the $500 in office to $250 for you guys. Radar, I'll discount the $1,250 down to $1K even for a remote QEEG. Send out to you in the US, anywhere, and guided. You can have it for 3 days. You can do more than one, so maybe a caffeinated map or an Adderall map or something if you want. You can go for that. And the coaches will guide you in recording, and you get all the raw data, and we'll process it. So if it's worth $1,000 to you, let me know, and I'll give you a special link that'll take $250 off. Actually, just go to /special, the peakbraininstitute.com/special, and you should find all of our programs cut down by $250. So you can, get a in-office brain map for a membership of $250 once a year, or a remote brain map for about $1,000. It should be that for the pricing. You can let me know if it isn't that for you. So guys, just a little intro to HEG. It's not really a deep dive into it. There are some really interesting sets of photographs out there. Dr. Carmen's done some pre-posts with migraineurs using infrared photography, showing that, doing a few sessions of HEG creates a different blood flow pattern, much more stable. I found it's useful, again, across all kinds of complaints, and it's a tool I'm really glad I have access to. Just as another personal anecdote, when I moved from Massachusetts, from the Boston area to UCLA, to Los Angeles in 2005, I did so on a motorcycle, and I took that motorcycle over the Rockies. And it was a little bit too small a motorcycle in retrospect for doing that. But the important part of the story is, as I got up into the Rockies, I started getting a little bit of altitude sickness. And so I stopped and hydrated and ate and wasn't feeling that great. And I had a neurofeedback system with me. That was a gift from my old boss when I left for grad school. And so I pulled it out and strapped on an HEG system. And I did HEG training for about 15 minutes, and the altitude sickness went away. And I was able to continue on my way and ended up crossing the Rockies that day and running ahead of a giant thunderstorm on the way down. Really scary. So I have some personal experience that migraines are really great targets, both in myself and in clients, but so are things that you wouldn't expect, like altitude sickness or residual long-term brain fog from COVID. Of course, by Ryan's example, we have to be, or from other forms of brain fog, we have to be sensitive to what the person's metabolism is dealing with, because it can be a taxing phenomena for some people. So that just really gets to the idea that not everyone responds the same way. Well, guys, thanks for hanging out with me tonight on Neurofeedback and Chill. Next week, I'll do a different topic. May just hang out and answer questions, but I'll go back to EEG training next week. Please do me a favor, like the video, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and tickle another video or two. Go ahead and leave a comment or share it out to a social media platform. And the YouTube gods love that, and they tend to send people to our channel. Also, there's a couple of good podcasts I've done recently. There's one called Acid for Squares. You can look at the playlists for guest podcasts. That's a good one I did with Cody Blue Snyder and Tanya Dahl. Great pair of folks, and check that out if you want to learn more about my general philosophy for doing neurofeedback. And as of tomorrow, I'll go back in and link this end card screen to that, but this is live, so we have to wait. So guys, if you have any more questions, lay them on me. Otherwise, I will end for the night, and I hope you're doing well. We usually go about an hour or more, so we're only about 40 minutes, kind of a short one for us, but that's okay. If you have any questions about neurofeedback, please feel free to book a live call with me for free. If you would like a brain map, as I was telling Radar, you can get them really discounted in our offices or reasonably priced for fully remote in the US. And those fees you pay towards brain mapping also apply towards neurofeedback programs. They would come off the top of those programs too. So we have lots of ways of supporting people globally. If you need some support, give me a shout. Happy to either try to find a way to support your neurofeedback, or maybe I'll have other ideas. If you've ever had a free call with me, you may have discovered that I don't try to sell you on neurofeedback. I explain what it is, but then I'm trying to find ways to add value and health and wellness. So I like people to become their own experts in this stuff, in themselves, in their brains. So if you're confused, sometimes a brain map alone can, let the scales fall away and enlighten you in a way that changes behavior, that helps you find healing, find progress, find growth, find transformation. So I encourage you, get your brain mapped, look at it yourself, know thyself. It's a fun thing, and it tends to be stuff you already know, which is kind of cool. So Radar, feel free to drive down, just $250 in any office, and then you can get unlimited for the year. Happy to do that at any point, of course. And you can have all the raw data for Loretta's and anything else, because I know you're going to want to geek out with everything. And all clients can, not just Radar Ashwood. So, all right, folks. Well, you have a good evening. You take care.